Alex here with a high conflict child custody video on taking the child's money. And usually this happens, first off, it doesn't happen that often. I'm kind of surprised to say that. You would think that you would see pretty much everything happening in a high conflict child custody case. But there are certain things that the high conflict parent can do that will very quickly expose them and will end the conflict by them basically losing their case. And there are some issues that come up that are red flags that are easy to prove, but a lot of the issues are either nothing burgers or they are red flags, but they're almost impossible to prove. Um, this is not one of them. If a child has money, especially if they have it in an account where you can actually show documentation, and one of the parents is taking it out of the account, it's a very big red flag for a family court judge. And most of the time, they do something about it. Depending on how much, usually what I see when somebody has an attorney is as soon as they're accused of this, before it gets to a hearing, they put the money back. Usually that's what I see. And I haven't even seen that very often. If you're dealing with birthday money, that's one thing, birthday and gift money. When you get to the point where the child has a job and one of the parents is taking the paycheck, that's an even more extreme, it's going to trigger a more extreme reaction from the court. This is such a serious issue that most of our states have rules in place to protect children from being exploited by their parents. For example, I know California has something for child actors. If there's a child and they're acting, they have some kind of special fund that they put the money in so that the child doesn't have to deal with their parents taking all of the money out of the fund. And I'm sure that they can take some out when it comes to, I guess, I don't know, maybe educating the child on acting, or maybe going to, I don't know, tryouts, stuff like, what do they call them, auditions, stuff like that. I haven't even looked into any of this stuff. All I really know is that there is a protective mechanism in California for child actors. And there's also something else when it comes to like um, personal injury cases and stuff like that, where children are supposed to get some kind of monetary award for having been injured. And I think they call it a, I've seen them pop up in the system as a petition for minors compromise or something like that. I've never really looked carefully into what those cases involve, but my very basic understanding is that those cases involve some kind of request to distribute the money to the children or something like that. Basically, the judge is supervising the process. I don't know if it has to do with the distribution of the actual funds themselves or if it has to do with approval of a settlement. Or all I know is that there's an extra protection in place for children, so that they're not exploited by the parents, who are the ones that are actually hiring the attorney and I guess signing off on the litigation process and stuff like that. I have actually talked to an attorney who is involved in these types of cases. This particular attorney is involved in the defense side, so not the plaintiff side, but the other side. And they said that they have heard stories of parents who called in, maybe not to her firm, but other firms, where they're trying to find out how much money they can get from their child being injured. I guess there was one particularly bad case where the child was burned. They had permanent burn injuries on them, and the parent was pretty gung ho about it until they found out that they would not have access to the money. They found out that the money would get put aside for the child. I don't know, like in a trust or something, and they just stopped calling. They just immediately stopped caring about the case. I guess the child was still able to get a settlement, but I'm not sure the circumstances. Maybe they waited till the child turned 18 or something. All I'm trying to say is there are situations with parents exploiting their children for money judgments or just generally taking money from their kids. Going back to what I said in the beginning of the video, I just don't hear about it that often. And the one or two times that I did hear about it coming up in child custody cases, high conflict child custody cases, both times before it went to a hearing, the parent who took their child's money put the money back. And obviously, that's one of the great ways to mitigate that from turning into a serious issue. So, yes, personally, I do think it's a serious issue as a father. Um, I can understand that some people get into desperate situations and they can't pay rent or something and they feel like they have to take their kids' money or they'll end up on the street. But I also think that it is a very slippery slope. And I think that most families could very easily justify taking their children's money. And it looks terrible. I think people should resist doing it with every ounce, with every fiber of their being. They should resist doing it. Find some other way to close the gap than take your child's money. And I do think that taking a child's paycheck is unforgivable. And I think that the judges feel the same way. The problem is that once children are getting a paycheck, they're going to work. And so my very strong fatherly instinct would be that you want to connect the child getting a job and paycheck with the fact that they're doing work that they maybe and probably don't want to do. Children often end up working in not fun fields, maybe, for example, fast food or stocking shelves, stuff like that. And the last thing you want to do is teach that child that they're going to go and work in this and enter the workforce and they're not going to get anything for it, that their parents just going to take their paycheck and spend it on who knows what. I think that if parents have a situation where their child owes them money, like for example if they got them a car or something, they should still let that child deposit the check and pay that bill. It's going to teach the child how to pay bills voluntarily rather than just intercepting the money. I heard of one case where somebody told me there was a parent that was taking their child's paychecks because they didn't trust their child, and then there were all these justifications about, well, they got him a car and stuff. It looks bad, guys. And if somebody doesn't have the instinct to know that that looks bad, that's going to jump out at a family court judge as a huge red flag. I doubt that these things come up in high conflict child custody cases. My suspicion is that these things come up in a case involving an addict, like a drug addict or a gambling addict. And the reason that I really don't think that those cases involve high conflict child custody is because that's a parent who doesn't have the self-control to keep the custody case alive. That's a parent who's going to make mistakes that very quickly result in their parental rights being curtailed. And there's no conflict once they've lost, especially to that degree. And that's probably why I don't have very many of them on the channel. There's probably a lot of parents out there who probably have this thing come up. Then they file a motion. Then the court says, where's their birthday money or where are their paychecks? And the guy's like, sorry, I spent it all on drugs or whatever. And then the judge probably is like, okay, there goes your legal custody rights. And there goes your physical. I mean, that case is over. That person is just not going to have any rights going forward because it's such an egregious thing that they're doing to their own kids. Maybe they'll just have like supervised visits or something like that, but they certainly would not have any access to the child's bank account and stuff. When you're dealing with a teenager who's getting a paycheck, that teenager probably won't even want to see that parent anymore. I mean, it'll leave such a strong distaste in that child's mind that they'll probably be like, okay, I'm done. Also, another thing that I've heard is there's a lot of situations where the kids act like they don't care. And it doesn't matter, the other parent's still going to be able to litigate it. But when the child turns of age, when they are 18, 19, 20, 25, 30, it's going to create a very strong memory, and that child's going to start to question that parent as they enter adulthood. So this is really one of those issues that is just not very murky when you're dealing with paycheck money and stuff like that. So yeah, guys, I mean, it's an issue, but it's one of those issues that is so much easier to prove. It's one of those issues that's going to turn the child on that particular parent that's taking their money. So it's just one of those issues. It's just not that confusing for a judge, for the other parent, for the child. It's one of those clear acts of abuse that I feel like it's gonna lead to a quick resolution. So one way or the other, either the money is getting put back or the parent's losing all their rights. And that's not something that I would disagree with either. I mean, as a common citizen, I mean, I don't know if I was on a jury. These cases don't have juries, but if I was on a jury, I'd be like, yeah, no, that's not going to fly. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else on this particular topic that comes up in high conflict child custody. I don't know. Maybe you guys disagree with me. Maybe it has come up in your cases before. Go ahead and post something down in the comments below about how it was dealt with. Hey, I'm just going to add something here. I was thinking of people who want to withhold a child's possessions and property to punish them as discipline. This is more reasonable to a judge, but it does get kind of murky once the child is making a paycheck. What I would do, I mean, I would resist with, again, guys, I would resist with every fiber of my being to take any possessions from a child that they bought with paycheck money. If they bought it with birthday gift money, that's more of a reasonable thing to take, at least temporarily, as a restriction or something like that. Once they start getting a paycheck from working a job, I understand that a parent is still going to need to do something to discipline some kids in some circumstances, and judges will understand that too. The only thing that I would do is I would disclose it. It would be that serious of an issue to me that I would disclose it to the other parent. I would say, look, I'm going to restrict their use of this possession because of this particular thing that they did. I would make it clear that even if it's confiscated, it's not mine. I'm not taking the possession from the child. It's just being confiscated. If the other parent wants it in their possession, I hate to say this, guys, but I would let it go on over there, because you do not want yourself being portrayed as a thief of your child's belongings, or file something. I mean that child must be doing some really extreme things for a parent to be taking things from them that they bought with their own paycheck money, and you do not want to be portrayed by the other parent as not only a thief, but you're stealing from your own child. So, and then of course you'd want to disclose this to your child as well. You'd want to tell your child, hey, even though you're being restricted from using your car or something like that, by no means is this mine. It's always going to be yours. And here's how long you're restricted from using this particular thing. And also, I don't know if it's going to be restricted until the child turns 18. I would make that very clear to the child that once you turn 18, you're an adult, and I no longer have the power to restrict your use of this. Now, it doesn't mean you can't kick them out of your home, but yeah, this is stuff that's it's got to be some pretty extreme stuff going on. And here's another thing: is a lot of times parents take advantage of their child having a car. So like, their child will be able to drive themselves to school. They may be able to do errands for the family. If that's going on, you're restricting your child from using something that they're also using to make your life easier. So like, I don't know. I'm at the point right now when my son is of this age and he's going to start earning a paycheck, and it's very, very, very difficult for me to find a reason that I would, if he got a car with his own money, working a job and getting a paycheck, it's very difficult for me to see myself restricting him from using that. See, at that point, things that start to come up, I'm going to try and resolve through talking, which has actually been very effective for me thus far. I'm not trying to say every other kid has the same teenager. I think I probably have one of the easiest teenagers on the planet, but it gets tricky, guys. Once paychecks get involved, once jobs get involved, because of course all of us want kids who can get a job, keep a job, earn an income. Like, this is one of the things that at least I start thinking about as a dad. And so I very much would want to avoid making this seem like not that I don't want to create a situation where I would think that he's going to be like, okay, well, I'm just not going to work anymore. I would want to stay as far away from that situation as possible, because once they're 19, 20 and they get an apartment and all that stuff, you want to make sure they're okay. So I don't know. This is turned into such an interesting video topic for me. I don't regret doing it at all, and obviously I'm going to publish it. But yeah, that's my insight from beginning to end, and I wanted to make sure that I added in this portion on, restricting access to certain possessions consistent with discipline, consistent with the parental need to discipline in some situations. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and I'll see you guys next time.